extent of the devastation wrought by yesterday's earthquake becomes more apparent. This is the small mountain town of Pescara del Tronto, almost entirely reduced to rubble. More than 4,000 rescuers have worked tirelessly to find people still believed to be trapped under the debris.
We worked through the night. The teams didn't stop. We will carry on doing everything. The dogs are playing a vital role. We have 30 dogs combing the rubble to find anyone who is still alive.
Rescuers call for quiet, using listening equipment to detect for any signs of life below. Where they're working is dangerous. The piles of debris are unstable and there have been hundreds of aftershocks. But scenes like this, the rescue of 10-year-old Julia last night, stiffen the resolve of those risking their own lives to help others. In Amatrice, the town clock stopped at the exact time the quake hit. The mayor said that 3/4 of the town's been destroyed and no building is safe now to live in. With no homes to go to, many people spent last night in tents or cars as the relief effort got underway.
I'm really pleased to see that there are tents where people in need can get psychological support. But words aren't the most important thing right now. Where possible, I want to bring emotional support. A sincere hug is probably 1,000 times more effective than words.
Help is on hand. Earthquakes are not uncommon in Italy, but this is the most powerful to hit since 1980, and people are struggling to take in the enormity of what's happened to their communities.
I've lived through many earthquakes. There's an earthquake here every 7 or 8 years, but I've never known one which has lasted for so long or was so bad.
We haven't slept. We are very tired. We do not know how long we'll have to stay here. The rescue services are still getting themselves organised.
I haven't slept a lot because I was really afraid. There was 1.5 minutes of earthquake, but now we're getting used to it. From yesterday, every 2 to 3 minutes there have been aftershocks.
The belief is still very much that survivors will be found. The likelihood is the death toll will continue to rise. Sarah Campbell, BBC News.
We saw our correspondent Jenny Hill in the headlines being forced to move on pretty swiftly too because of problems in the town of Amatrice, so badly damaged there. She has moved. She's moved to the hamlet of Casale and she described the extent of the damage there for us.
This is one of scores of tiny little hamlets and villages dotted all around the foot of Amatrice. This is the hamlet of Casale, and this is all that's left. There were 20 houses here. Just 3 of them are still standing. Rescue workers who've been here all night tell us that 15 people have died here. They pulled bodies out of the wreckage, among them a family, a couple with their young grandchild. They've described extremely distressing scenes in the darkness, in very dangerous conditions, because bear in mind that the ground here is still shaking from time to time. We've experienced those aftershocks ourselves. They can really throw you off of your feet. It's unnerving if you're simply reporting, but it's really difficult if you're inside one of those buildings or trying to climb some rubble, trying to get to someone who might still be alive and trapped inside it. So the rescue workers' job has been very difficult indeed. And I think it's made all the more difficult for places like this because they're linked by a little network of very narrow, very twisting, winding roads. So bear in mind you've got to get heavy machinery to them, and there are so many places that need to be reached. We've driven through scores of villages which look almost as bad as this. And along the way you see the odd person coming back to take a look at their home, perhaps having a hug with someone who they've just met who's in the same position. Here, I have to say, it's eerily quiet. We've just watched what we're told was the last body being loaded onto a trolley and taken away. It's a real reminder of the human cost of this earthquake. The death toll, of course, is into the hundreds. Rescue workers say they're still going to keep looking. They know there are still people trapped in the wreckage, but they have indicated to us this morning that their task now across this region is more likely to be a case of recovering the dead rather than finding the living.
Yeah, that is the challenge, isn't it? Jenny Hill there for us. We have got some new pictures which have come into us from Amatrice. This just in the last few minutes. Have a look at this. Well, it's unmistakable, isn't it, apart from the dust coming up with that rumble going on as well. The risk's still very much there in central Italy. For search and rescue teams, that's a massive challenge, isn't it, after the quake itself and the plumes of dust all coming up after the aftershock. Let's, I think we can talk now to Juana Mazzocchi, who's a chief scientist at Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology in Rome. Juana, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We just saw some pictures of rumblings again in Amatrice. We've heard of all these aftershocks. Is that something that you would expect, and do you feel that the worst is done?
After a big earthquake, there is almost always, I would say, a seismic sequence that can last also weeks, even months. But most of this earthquake are expected to be smaller than the one that originated the sequence. But that's not necessary. I mean, sometimes it happens. There is some chance that one of these aftershock could be equal or even larger than the event that generated the sequence. So, for sure, now the situation is worse than 1 month ago, for instance.
Right, but how long can that